Hello and welcome. So today I wanted to make a. I did this video already. What is 40 roleplay? But it was a video that I recorded when I was walking on the beach with my dog. Right, so the quality is not great, and there's no visual support. So I said, you know what? It's probably time that I redo this video. There's a lot of new people on the channel, so it's probably time that I redo the video in a more shareable way, in a more shareable format with the slide. So this is it. What is 40 roleplay? I know a lot of you are going to know what it is because we talk about it a lot. But for people that are new or people that are not my regular subscriber, hopefully this video is going to go outside of my regular viewer and it's going to be helpful to some people. So the term 4D roleplay comes from this 4 dimension of role-playing game that we came up with at some point. It's a model to distinguish the different way people engage with this hobby. It's not necessarily a qualitative, then more like a it doesn't describe like necessarily we can have preference and we talk about that, but it's not necessarily how good or bad, but it's how deep you're invested in the role playing experience or in the role playing game hobby. It is intended to help people find the right group and different advice. When you look at the GM advice or player advice or role playing advice, different advice would apply to different level of engagement, so different dimension. So when we give, like, if I make video about gym advice, I'm going to talk about for 3D role play. It won't necessarily apply to somebody playing in 2D or 1D. And I said like I said, it's not very like qualitative, but the higher you go, the closer you get to the essence of role playing game, which is role playing, right? So you're gonna have more role play in 3D and 4D than you're gonna have in 1D and 2D. So those dimension, there's 4 of them, obviously. And the first one, 1D, is what I call the social pretext. Is you use the game. The game is an excuse to get together. The 2D games are come in two variety: the board game, war game, or story time. The 3D is the role players game, and the 4D is the co-creator game. And I'm gonna go through every one of them one by one. So that's why I'm not expanding too much here because, well, I know what's coming in the slide. You don't, but I do. So let's go to the next slide. First dimension, the social pretext. So yeah, that's what I said. Like the game is more an excuse to get together, and getting together, especially as adult, is important, right? Oftentimes, like adulthood is just like spend time saying like, "Oh, we should do something sometime," right? And then we never do. Throwing in like, "Oh, the first Saturday of the month is game day and we get together and we drink some beer, eat some pizza and play a game together," right? And role-playing games are great for that. You could do that for with board game or other stuff. But what's game about role-playing game, it's like an ongoing open-ended experience where you can expect that to show up again and again. Like a board game day or board game night are self-contained. So if you have like something coming up, you can it's much easier to say, "Oh, I cannot make it this week," and, "Oh, that's all right, we're gonna play a different game." With the role-playing game, there's a bit more of a commitment, which is a good thing to maintain uh, social engagement in adulthood. There's going to be a lot of joking around, pop culture reference, 80s jokes and stuff like that, right? And oftentimes not much is going to be accomplished in the game because you're going to have like sometimes those sessions might be longer. Like when I say like, "Oh, Saturday is going to be like game day," because you're going to play like for 6 hours, and most of it is filled with like just joking and socializing basically, so not much in game is done. That's oftentimes a hallmark of those 1D game. Second dimension, it's I said they come in like two big category. Sorry for the cat. The board game war game type or the story time, right? It's like at that point when you play in 2D, you pay more attention, you're more serious about the game, you're more invested in the game, right? You're deeper in it. It's a hobby that you spend much time in it, that you spend time thinking about the hobby outside of the hobby. But either you're going to be focused on the mechanics side of the game, the mechanical side of the game. So like I said, like that's about like that's when you're gonna be into deep into the character build, and you're gonna spend a lot of time thinking about like the combat is gonna be very tactical, and you're gonna spend a lot of time talking about yeah, tactics, and like the now like when a fight break outs, right, in the game, it's gonna be like battle map and stuff like that. And it's gonna be very engaged, gonna take a long time. Or the other side of that is gonna be on focus on the GM story, right? The GM wants to tell you a story, and you're kind of there along for the ride. And those two can very much so coexist. You can have a GM that is there to tell story to the player not caring much about that story. They're gonna go through it, waiting for the next combat. Now they're gonna get engaged, and now they're gonna go into the mechanic stuff and get invested in that. All right, they put a lot of thought in building this character, all the mechanical bit and stuff like that. They didn't think too much about the personality of who the character is. They thought about what the character can do, and now they lend this character to the GM to tell a story with until combat breaks out, and then and then the focus become very mechanical. So those two can coexist, but they all in the big 2D game, right? 2D, second dimension game. So you're invested in the game, but you're not there role playing, right? And I talk a lot about role playing. We talk a lot about role playing on this channel. And when we say role playing, I always have to remind people what we mean by that is not just like talking in character. It's not just like, oh, you go to the shop and you bargain, you haggle for your a better price when you sell the armor that you looted, right? Just like that's not what we're talking about. Role playing is not just talking in character, is thinking in character, right? So that's what like I want you to become this character and to make those decisions based on the character. That's also, if I go back one slide, right? That's also one thing in the 2D game. You're not gonna think in character, because if you're in the mechanical focus game, in the combat game, you're gonna make your decision to win combat or to do the most damage per round, or to do, there's this is where the decision making process is. If you're in those kind of war games that are competitive, like the Brownstein people, right? You're gonna be in the I talked about that in my last stream, I think. You're gonna be in the decision making process is gonna be winning, right? Like beating the GM, beating the other player, and stuff like that. If you're in the story game, the thinking process is gonna be, well, I need to. This is the plot point that GM prep, so I need to find an excuse to go in there. So you're not thinking in character; you're thinking like, I need to have my character serve the story, right? So that this is not place for roleplay. So in 3D game, what I call the roles player game, right? The focus is on role playing. The mechanical and out of character is minimized as much as possible. When we say like don't ask questions to the GM, that's what we talk about. Uh, we don't talk about the rules. We resolve them in kind of the background. Player agency is respected, so the GM doesn't move the character. Like you don't have like a you don't have a you're not on a railroad. You're not gonna be, there's no buy-in that you have to do to make the story work, because that's the story that GM plan, because there shouldn't be a story plan, right? And the goal is to have an immersive experience. So the goal is not to win. The goal is not to the goal is not to is not to create like beat the combat or challenge the like a lot of, like in the 2D game, oftentimes like they're gonna say like a question beast often talk about like challenging the player, not the character. That's the opposite here, right? The goal is you're not trying to outsmart the GM or outsmart your player, or be like, the goal is to have a world that is believable, that we can all evolve in, and feel like during the time of the session we wear those character in those worlds as much as possible, right? We want to get closer to that. The fourth dimension, so like when I said the co-creators game, that's include everything that was in 3D, but also we give the player the freedom to contribute to the scene, by interacting object and NPC. So you can like, and you have to respect the okay, you have to respect the setting, tone, and context of the game and scene, right? So that what that means, like if the GM say you're in a office building or you're right, and there's like he's gonna do a brief description around, then you can say, "Oh, I grab a keyboard on the desk next to me," right? Because it's like it's a modern setting, right? Because it's gonna be expected that one's gonna be there, right? If you say if like if you try to bring in something like you want to interact with the potted plants, that's fair, right? The GM maybe not have said there was a potted plants, but you're in a modern office building. There are probably going to be some potted plants, right? It doesn't break immersion. It doesn't break the tone or the realism. It doesn't break the setting. If you're in a post-apocalyptic game and you're in an office building that hasn't been used in ages, right? And now you want to interact with the potted plant, no, it's probably going to be dead and decompose and all that stuff, right? So you have to respect the co-creation, but it's you filling in the blank. So why you want to do that? The benefit of 4D roleplay. So it's a more immersive experience because the mindscape is not constantly broken. When you limit yourself to saying what your character, where your character is, what your character do, what your character say, and we don't always like discuss mechanic and stuff like that, you can just like imagine the scene with your mind's eyes, right? You can just see the scene from your character's point of view too, right? You're supposed to be in POV. You're supposed to be in point of view of your character. So you're looking through your mind's eyes at the scene as your characters see it. And there's not always something coming back to bring you back to the real world, right? A joke that doesn't belong or a debate about the meaning of a mechanic and stuff like that, right? We keep all that like outside the session. And because of that also you can do much more in a session. We often do like the sessions we do are often around 2 hours. We can keep them short because we don't spend 20 minutes to debate the rules. We don't spend 45 minutes to do like, oh, what would happen if I do that? Like, no, you try it or you don't. Like, there's no hypothetical. There's and because of that also, you when it's not your turn, like your turn is coming back fast because everybody just say what their character does, where the character is, what the character does, what the character says, right? It doesn't take that long. There's no like long monologue. There's no long debate. So you don't have time to check out. You're gonna have a turn. Your turns come back often. It's going through. You're going on a table soon, right? Or like quickly. And the freedom to visualize the scene in full, that's really where the co-creation benefit comes in because the GM can describe the scene. You're in the bedroom of the lord of the manor, right? It's richly decorated, tapestry on the wall, just some detail like that to set the tone, and then you can fill in the blank. You don't have like to keep the scene in your mind barren until the GM like specify what exactly every little detail that is there, right? You can fill in the blank and you can populate and interact with the world that you created because of that. So, and you don't have to ask permission. Like you don't have to say like, oh, is there like is there a chamber pot under the bed, right? There probably is. It makes sense, right? It's in the setting and stuff like that. It's in the tone. So you want to interact with that, you can just go right ahead. You don't have to stop and ask a question, right? Asking, is there a chamber pot under the bed? That would be like a 2D kind of move, right? Or 1D kind of move. It's an out of character question. If you were to do that in 3D, you could say, I look under the bed for a chamber pot, which is perfectly fine. And then GM would say, yes, it is there and empty. If you want to do the 4D way, you could just go, you just cut this little, you just trim a little bit more and just say like, I reach under the bed for the chamber pot. And then it could be not there. The GM can say like, well, none of it is there, but you don't have to ask if it's there, right? You don't have to ask permission. If you want to say, you know, if you're in a kitchen You don't have to ask if there's knife or a pair of scissors and stuff like that. It's probably there, so you can just go along and assume it's there and do what you want to do with it, right? I wanted to address some common misconception about 4D role play, some stuff that we often hear, right? Kind of knee-jerk reaction. People say we don't use the rules or we don't care about the rules, and that's incorrect. Actually, we do require people to have some rule mastery because we don't want to discuss the rule at the table. The rules are still used. We still use them. They're there. We just resolve them in the background without spending time talking about them or debating them, right? We're just like blending in what we do, right? And then we make a role and then we move on and we keep feeding the fiction of the world, right? We keep feeding the mindscape that we're creating together. Oh, you know what? I think I have slide to go through each one of them, so I'm just gonna go. You can read them there, but I'm gonna go to each one of them. So I'm just gonna go straight in there. Right there, you go. We still play with rules. The rules are used and resolved without being discussed. Right. That's what I'm saying. Rule mastery is required for the GM and the player, and we also add. We actually don't use less rule. We actually add rules to roleplay, which a lot of the game don't have. I mentioned some of them before, right? When we say like don't ask questions to the GM, that's a rules that we have that is added to support roleplay. What we mean by that, which people often don't understand, is like you as a player don't get to ask a question to the GM. If you want to find out something about the world, interact with the world, right? So that's what I put there like a second rule. Like those are example. So you don't ask the GM, is the door locked? You say, I go check if the door is locked. I go try the door handle, and then the GM is gonna say door is not locked or the door is locked, right? Whatever fit the situation. When we say like when it's your turn, tell us where you are, what you do, and what you say. That's your turn. That's what your turn should be. You don't need more than that. That's just good enough. The GM doesn't say what the PC think, feel, or do. Very important. Player agency is crucial, right? And some people say, "Oh, that's obvious." Obviously, like we see that so often when we watch when we watch actual play, right? GM moving the PC around. Oh, now, you're going to the player didn't say they're going to the next room, but now the GM is saying like, oh, now you enter the next room, right? Just like, wait, now you moving my character? Come on, GM. You can control the world. You can control the NPC. The only thing I have to control is my own character. So don't take that away from me, right? Same thing with think or feel. Uh, you don't need to say, oh, you think, just say what things are, right? You don't need to, and I interpret it how I think about it or how I feel about it. Role play in the present. So don't say, oh, I'm gonna do this. I want to, I'm going to do that, right? Just say what you do now. And role play in the present also, like, don't tell me you're like when it's your turn, don't tell me your next 15 action. Don't tell me what you're gonna do for the next 10 minutes, right? Unless you do one action, it's gonna take 10 minutes maybe. But tell me what you do now. And if everybody respect that, your turn is not gonna be super long. And then we're gonna come back to you again. You're gonna have another turn, and then you can tell me what you do now, right? Again, right? So you don't have to tell me like that's often sometimes like there's something we call like turnflation, right? That some people like a player is gonna take a super long turn, and then the next player want to say like, well, now my character like has been doing nothing for all that time, so now I have to tell you all I did for that time, so he takes a long turn as well, and then next player does take a long turn, like so that, and everybody end up taking a longer turn because they want to fill in all the blank for what their character did for all that time that you took, right? So keep your turn short, role play in the present, tell me what you're doing now, right? And then I'll come back to you. But if this trust is broken, it leads to problem. And no hypotheticals. That's something that drives me mad when I see, like, drive me crazy now when we see that in actual play, right? Oh, what would happen if this? Oh, can I do this? Like, if I were to do that, would that work in that way, right? Try something, do something, right? Like, you don't know what would happen. If you don't know what would happen, you don't know what would happen. So the way to figure out is to try it. Some people say we're just reinventing story gaming, and I take exception to that because, like, what we do is very different from story gaming, depending on what you call story gaming, I guess. But because we don't have a story to tell, we don't have like there's no like plot point that we have to go through, right? We're not like there like with a enacting a scenario. It's not just like and should have added as well. Like, we're not just acting, right? It's just about like being thespian and being actor and stuff like that. That's not what we talk about role play. People that say that, they think like, oh, role playing. Oh, you mean speaking in voices? No. If that's what you think role playing is, you have no idea what role playing is. And it doesn't mean that speaking in voices cannot be part of role playing. It can, but it doesn't have to be. But so it's not just about acting and stuff like that. We're still playing a game, and part of playing a game is that we don't know what's gonna happen. There's no like the dice are there to use. We're not like there's no plot armor. The story, like I said, the story is what happened in past tense during the session, right? So there's no like the story you get after you played. You have to play the game to figure out what the story is. There's no like story to go through. It's about experiencing a world, not satisfying a narrative, right? So that's what we try to do. We try to maintain the verisimilitude of the world, the consistency of the character, and those character evolve in that world, and from that story arise, and things can go wrong, right? So not only like there's no plot armor, but also the players are free to, or the characters are free to not stick to there's no rail to follow. So you can try to bring some plot point, but doesn't mean that they're gonna go the direction you think they will. The player will just wish thing into existence to win. That's also something like we hear a lot, like when we talk about co-creation, right? People like always jump, oh, I'm just gonna say, oh, I open the drawer and I find like I open the nightstand and I find like a +6 sort of avenging or whatever kind of bullshit that they like, right? Just like, and yeah, you're not supposed to rewrite reality, right? The world exists. The world is supposed to make sense. All together at the table, we're there to preserve the verisimilitude of the world because the experience we're trying to have is to experience what it be those character in that world. If you cannot preserve the reality of the world, the whole thing is going out the window, right? The players, like the co-creation is to fill in the blanks, right? Like we mentioned also, like you can co-create NPCs. You can't really co-create NPCs if you're out on a deserted island, right? That would be like breaking the reality of the world, like if suddenly somebody show up. But if you're in a busy street and it's the market day, then you can. If you're in a bar, in a tavern, you can just say like, oh, I grab the guy next to me and I grab a drunk old man and I slap on the back of the drunk old man at the bar, right? It wasn't mentioned before, but it doesn't break the reality of the world for him to be there, and it makes sense. And you being allowed to co-create like that allows you to imagine the bar or the tavern or whatever not as a barren place. You can fill in it with NPCs in your mind without the GM having to describe every one of them or having to have planned every one of them. So co-creation must respect the setting, the tone, and the context, right? That's all. That's what I'm talking about when I say that. Well, you're in the desert, you cannot co-create an NPCs coming up, or you're in a, or like at the example I said, like you're in post-apocalyptic in the office building. The potted plants are probably dead, long dead, right, and rotten. Cannot be used as a get out of jail free card. So you also like it'd be like bad form to just like to just create something out of thin air that like give you the solution, right? Oh, the door is locked. Look at that. Here's the key, right? That would be kind of a that would break the rules, I guess, the rules of the of co-creation. The GM can counter co-create if a player step out of bound, right? That's also oftentimes like we say like the GM kind of like a veto, but we try to do like a soft veto in a sense to because one thing I hate is like the oh no actually there is no scissor in the drawer, right? In the kitchen. For some reason it's important that there's no scissor. So but the player co-created a pair of scissor and you don't want him to have them for some reason, which anyway it could be problematic, right? At some point like you can also let your player have things sometimes. But for some reason, right? And then like he grabs some scissor and like, oh, I grabbed the scissor from the drawer, and I tried to cut the zip tie that is holding her end together, right? It's kind of scenario, right? But then like the gym can say like, well, the scissor are rusted and the bolt holding them together is break, right? Whatever, right? Just you can like you can do stuff, right? Even if somebody would say like, oh, open the nightstand and I grab a gun that is there, then the gun can have no bullet. The GM can say like, something like that. Like when the guy come to use the gun later on, there's no bullet in it. If he didn't check, if he checks, you can like say it right away, right? It's empty. So instead of like just saying like, no, there's no gun, right? You can let him have it, but kind of like counter co-create against it, right? Just like so you add another detail stated or outright, or when it comes relevant, that takes away the thing, right? Or mitigate it a bit, right? If the player went too far. But again, let them have thing. And also like yeah, co-creation, like I say, it's not to be used with retards. And I say that, and I'm sorry if it's gonna offend some people, but like so often, like you talk about people like way to play a game and say, oh, that wouldn't work with my player because the people I play with are stupid or like are very dumb or a cheater or like, like, well, what can I tell you, bro? It's just like don't play with retard. Don't play with, you know, choose your player, the people you play with better, right? Or try to have a talk with them. Like, well, can you try not to be so dumb, right? If they cannot like grasp the vibe, right, of the scene, if they cannot yeah, if you cannot grasp the vibe of the scene, if you cannot if you cannot like understand what it would be like operate in the context and stuff like that for co-creation, right? Then well, maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's I'm sorry. Some people say, oh, the GM is losing his role. Why bother having a GM at this point if the player can co-create? Well, the GM can still control the world in the NPC. He still does provide challenge for the PCs. He serves as a narrator, so describing what's, basically the GM like is set the situation, the local, the context, and the player must respect those limits. So you're still there to say like, well, you're in a bar, it's a busy night, there's smoke in the air, you can add some flavor and stuff like that, but then like the player can add to that, but you're still the one that kind of set the context, right? So there's still a role for the GM. Yes, you're not there like you can you have to let go of some control. You're not there to you're not there to like you're not there to ask every question like, oh, is there this, is there that, is there like paint like every picture, like, we say like, oh, paint a picture, but now like I don't have to render every pixel on the screen like of their mind's eyes, right? If you to make like a modern analogy, right? You can I can tell you like, well, there's a chair. I don't have to tell you like exactly how the chair is, right? You've seen a chair before and you understand what the context is, you understand what the setting is, you can probably assume what the chair is like, right? It's also cut down on the description. So yeah, there's something that the GM the GM does let go of some control, but he still has a role. And him as still having this role, like him letting go some control, can allow him to focus on the most important and interesting and essential part of his role, instead of like just having to answer like 20 questions every time a player takes a turn, right? I trust gaming. I want to talk about it a bit. It's a word that Crispy used a lot lately, and it's a word that I love, so I'm using it now as well. And I would say, like, when I say don't play with retard, don't play with cheater, right? That's part of it. It's not limited to 3D and 4D, although it is required for 3D and 4D. You cannot do it if you cannot play in 3D and 4D if you cannot trust your player. So yeah, don't roleplay with cheater or even people that you always have to check. Like, I will also make sure they're not gonna cheat, right? Don't invite those people at your table. They don't get it. They don't get what you're there to do, right? RPG are meant to be collaborative game. We're there to create this reality together and experience it. Winning is done by being immersed, right? So it's not about like doing the most damage or making the table laugh the most, which I guess that could be like in a 1D game or 2D game, right? It's not about just beating the GM, because the GM can also like always bring more stuff to defeat you. So those cannot be like the winning condition in a role playing game. So we have to think about it differently. What are the winning condition in a role playing game? Well, it's a collaborative game, so everybody wins together, GM and player, and you win when it felt real. You felt like you were there. And no lawyering during the session, and that's not only like rule lawyering, like, oh, it's also like all kind of situation, right? Trying to whistle out like you know, if you start arguing to try to get an advantage like that, it breaks the model of I trust gaming, let's say. And that's what I had to say about that, I guess. So thank you for watching. You can leave me your comment, like, subscribe, share, and obviously do those show live. I didn't mention that. Usually I mentioned that before. When I have like those slide video, I usually don't. I try to front load the content. I went much longer than I usually do for those kind of video. I try to front load the content so I can go through the slide, and thereafter I look at the chat and I reply to people what people ask. So that's what I'm gonna do now. So if you're just there for the main crux of the content, well, thank you for watching. And now, like, I can say hi to people that join, Yakrip and Kingmaker. Good to see the official returning. Yeah, come and go, right? And Phil and Elf Hunter, Zonalar. Not much is being accomplished in a 1D game. That's very true. Even in 2D game, right? Like 1D, 2D, we see a lot of game like not much being accomplished. Like we often say, like in jokingly, right? The 40 minutes combat round. But then when Crispy was doing those actual play, unsolicited advice, right? Which you should watch. They're great fun. The 45 minutes combat round, is actually a thing. Like, we timed it, and going one round of combat with like 5 players took 45 minutes in more than one game, or close enough, right? That's insane. So, hello, John. Hello, Smith. Zanar say people conflate roleplay with improv acting. Can you elaborate on the difference? Does improv acting have any play in a role playing game? Uh, that's a tough question for me to answer, because like improv is very big in Quebec, but we do it a bit different than a lot of places. So I don't know, like my view on that. Like, improv is often like done for an audience, um, and it's more performative, right? In role play, what you're trying to do is you're trying to immerse yourself in the character and feel like you're there in the situation, believe in the world. So the question is not like the question is what my character would do, right? Which is often a malign kind of like a statement that people say when people want to justify doing mayhem, right? They say, "Oh, that's what my character would do," but that's actually the correct statement for role playing game. You should do what your character would do in that situation. In improv, in theater, right? Improv acting, The question is what would be interesting for the audience, right? So it's not the same kind of goal, right? So, or there you go, like Yakrep say, like improv acting is audience focused and role play is participant focused. I would agree with the improv acting is audience focused and role play is immersion focused. That's what I would say. Yeah, improvisation is not exclusive to improv theater. No, you can you improvisation is just a thing, right? You improvise when you do. I improvise when I reply to those questions. It's not planned, right? Every time you do something that's not planned, you're improvising, right? It's just a term. Acting is putting on a performance, yeah, and there you go, you got it. Acting is putting on a performance. Role playing is pretending to be someone else. Yeah. Role playing is not concerned with writing a good story in the moment. Exactly. It's about experiencing what your character does through immersion. There you go. Elf Hunter got it right away. Too many people will drink the chamber pot. Yeah, that's why you make sure that they're empty. If I dig a hole to hide inside, all right, is not in immediate danger. I take him out of combat. We return to him when sufficient time passes or when he's interrupted. Yes, that's a when I GM, that's something I try to do. If somebody like give me like an action that will take a long time, uh, sometime I'm just gonna do a few other rounds with like a few rounds with the other players before coming back to him, assuming he's still doing his thing. But we have this thing of anchoring, right? With you know that, but for people watching, we have this thing of anchoring, where those little throwaway action that are there to signal, like when you take it's almost a way to skip a turn, right? When you say you're gonna do basically like a little action that make you still exist in the world, but accomplish nothing, and that's gonna say like if there's two character having a conversation, right? Two other player having a conversation, and two other PCs having a conversation. My PC is just like he's not involved, doesn't have anything to contribute, and I'm just sitting in the couch. They're the little thing, right? Oh, I'm start like I pick a lint from the couch and rolling between my finger and throwing it on the ground, right? Like little throwaway action that say I still exist in the world, I'm still there present. I don't have anything to contribute right now, and I'm okay with you, you know. So my turn is not skipped. The GM doesn't necessarily have to skip over me and keep this conversation going on and on and on. So I still get my turn, but I kind of like I choose to skip my turn, indicating the other player like keep on going. I don't have to interrupt, but you can keep on going. I'm okay with this thing going on. I still exist in the world and stuff like that. Then when my turn come back, and if I add enough, then I can have my character do something. So you don't have to skip the turn, and then I don't have to try to cut in to interrupt the conversation because I still get my turn, right? And we do like if there's a conversation going, we do like we can do a few back and forth, but then like let's go around again to make sure that everybody is still there, everybody is still involved, you know, to some extent. And so this is the idea of anchoring it. When we're digging the hole, you could like if somebody say, oh, I start digging a hole to hide myself in, or I start like chopping down a tree, which is gonna take a long time, right? Then you can skip him once in a while, right? And then you come back to him, and the guy just say like, I'm still swinging my axe, I'm wiping the sweat of my brow, going back to my work. You know, there's those little things that say like I'm still existing in the world, but it's also giving the player a chance to, uh, if you want to stop what he's doing something else or interjecting something, he can do it without having to interrupt the rest of the player, right? So try not to skip other people's turns too much. I think that would be like the common, especially online. I think because interruption are much more harmful online because of the technology and stuff like that. So I think that would be like the common wisdom nowadays that we have. Asterion say it's not to be used with retards. Well, forget to see. Well, forget to see it on any mainstream channel. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I'm not there to cast a wide net, right? So I can like, I'm there for the quality of the audience, not the quantity. There you go. Player co-creation is complementary to the GM's role. That's a good way to put it, Crispy. Yeah, I trust games are where it's at. Absolutely, I wouldn't do it anyway. I don't have time for that. I don't have time like to I'm not there to babysit anyone. Zonar's reputation is a stat. You have it, even if you think you don't. It doesn't matter. Yeah, or that it doesn't matter. Yeah. Play by the rules without having to repeat the rules being used each turn. I don't know why people like cannot do that. Like why it's so hard for people, right? And you see like people like, oh, it's session 124 of this campaign, and they still have to discuss the rules every time, right? Like you've been playing this character for like 5 years or whatever, right? And you still have to discuss the rule every time. Oh, thank you, George. I'm glad you liked it. Archlight say 3D seem to be the least defined level of play. It feel like the push is just to skip it and go from 2D to 4D. Uh, it's because like it's the least defined of play. It's not. I wouldn't say it's the least defined of play. Because a lot of the 4D is the smallest. Is the smallest jump. That's what I would say. That's what I often say. Right. Once you're in 3D, going to 4D is the smallest jump. The biggest jump is between 2D and 3D. But 3D is almost there for people that want to remain in character and stuff like that, but are not comfortable with the co-creation. So they're still gonna probe the world, but they're gonna do it through the action, right? Like the chamber pot. Like they're not gonna say like I grab the chamber pot from under the bed. They're gonna say uh, they're gonna try to say I look under the bed if there's a chamber pot, right? They're not gonna say I slap on the back of the old drunk man at the bar. They're gonna say I look at the people sitting at the bar, right? They probe the world, and then the GM is gonna fill in the blanks. So that's where 3D is at, right? You're still in character, and it's still like if you can do 3D, you're a great level of play, right? You're a role player. Congratulations, you made it. You made it. Once you're in 3D, but it's just like for people that are not comfortable for co-creation or for GM that are not comfortable co-creation, and that's big problem. Some GM don't dare to let go of the control, right? A bit of control freak. So that's where 3D sits at. But yeah, the jump between 2D and 3D is the biggest one, and the jump between 3D and 4D is the smallest one. And I was saying also earlier, right? It's like I say they're not like ordered necessarily by you know, for me 2D is my least favorite kind of game. I would rather play in a 1D game, joking around with my friends, just having a social experience, like having good time together, right? And using the game as an excuse for that. And if I go in it and I know that's what it's about, I can have a good time with that. I'm okay. But if you expect me to take the game seriously, but not be immersed, then I'm gonna get bored, right? It's like that's not something that really interests me. Or if I'm just there for you to tell me a story, for the GM just tell me a story, I'm not interested in that, right? So those 2D game for me are the worst. So it's not necessarily like this classification between from 1D to 4D. It's not directly from worst to best because there's also a matter of taste in there, right? So that's what I would say. For me, 2D is what I find the worst. 4D is what I prefer. 3D is fine, and 1D I'm fine with as well. 1D, yeah, I'm fine with as well. But yeah. Captain Conway say, I find that story gamers are a cargo cold. They have seen momentary glimpse of roleplay and try to imitate it by creating a story and following it by the way they act makes roleplay. It's very interesting way to put it. Cargo cult, yeah. They've saw roleplay somewhere, and then they try to reenact it, but they don't grasp it. So they just like go to the motion of like, oh wait, oh they were talking in character, and they were like, oh they had a cool story that emerged from the play, but they don't get that's how it came about. So now they try to plan the story. It's a very interesting way to put it. The cargo cult, I love it. Thank you for that comment. I trust gaming also eliminate the needs to for out of character negotiation between player and GM. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like no lawyering, right? Just like That's it's not only about rule lowering, but like lowering the reality of the world, right? Like, oh yeah, but like if I were to use a lever on that chest, I probably could, like he said no, right? Just go along, right? Like I know Max Lia often use like the example of like this nerdy player talking about like green laser versus red laser and asking of the color of the laser, and oh, because of the color laser, this laser would behave that way. Like, shut the fuck up, nerds. You don't get what we're doing here. Captain Conway was replying to her Archlight. Not really. The difference is very clear. Most people don't consider 3D and 4D a part of the same hierarchy. 3D is truly perfected 2D, whilst 4D is almost a new medium. No, I would I disagree with that. I think because, like I said, I think the biggest jump is between 2D and 3D. So like 4D is almost like perfected 3D. That's what I would say. 3D is great, but 4D is better in that it facilitates staying in character to avoid excessive second person GMing. Yeah, that's it just like give you the freedom to truly be immersed, right? It gives you the freedom to fill in your mind's eyes, right? To completely like view the scene without having to hold a reserve for what the GM will allow, right? Captain Conway said one could argue that improv is an emulation of roleplay as well. I need to learn to read. The person is not immersing themselves for the role of immersion. They are there to create a scene. Yeah, I think that's a big difference. The big distinction. The big distinction. Feels 2D doesn't require roleplay at all. That's true. No roleplay is required. You could never think and oftentimes, because like if we say like roleplay is thinking in character, oftentimes that goes in the way of 2D game, because if you're in a 2D game that is mechanical focus, right, and you're expected to do the most optimal thing in combat, every round of combat to have the most damage, right, thinking in character is going to get in the way of that. So roleplay become like antithetical, anti become harmful to the 2D experience in a sense. So yeah, Captain Conway says it's sort of like cooking. Role play is when you cook for yourself to eat, whilst a chef, when cooking, cares only about the end product. I think that was all about like the improv thing. I'd say 2D mastery is more about creative problem solving, rule mastery, and tactical acumen. Yeah, it's about like a lot about system mastery, a lot of that. Or because I divided the 2D, right, but between like the board game side and the story game side, it's also like about like impressing your friend about when you're the GM, right? That's often going to be the GM side. Impressing your friend about how creative you are and how cool the story isn't. The story that came up with for you so cool, right? That's oftentimes like a big part of 2D. Dice still say what's happening for a moment on break. Uh, I don't know what that's referring to. I'm sorry, Dice still. Feel the trail said 2D bad pizza worse bun. That's going to 1D. This fucking phone keyboard is going to make me crazy. I know the feeling. And then table runner say like I really enjoy your last video, Dice still. I don't know which one it was that. I need to I don't know if there's a one I missed. Just drop for a minute while on break from work. Oh, there you go. We'll probably get watch this later. Well, thank you. Thank you for dropping by and or watching later. I'm not sure what you mean, Dice still. Are you saying bad pizza is still pizza? I don't know. I think like, he had like some phone issue. Yeah. Captain Conaway was saying to fill a trail. Perhaps you're approaching it from a player perspective. If you optimize the methodology of a 2D game, such as minimizing out of character talk, then you start approaching. If you minimize character out of character talk, you're getting into 3D. You're not into 2D anymore. When you start like thinking about in character, right? Minimizing out of character talk and starting to think in character, then you're in the 3D realm. but then I mean like you won't focus as much on the rules and the most optimal and the most damage per round, right? That's us to take the side, right? To be left on the side. I'm loving your unsolicited advice in the past. Oh yeah, that's too crispy. Yeah, they're great. Minimizing out of character talk is not seen as a virtue of 2D gaming. Absolutely, yeah. So doing that more would be appropriate for 3D. Yeah, there you go. So people are agreeing in chat. Archlight said, "Thank you so much for that breakdown, Max. I feel like I understand it much better now. I hope. Yeah, I'm glad if it helped. 2D feel like board gaming, and that's fine in its own right. I agree with that if that's what you're about, but it's not really role playing. More like a skirmish war game. Yeah, like you're not getting the most of the medium. I think if that's what you're doing, right? Like, and you know, maybe there's some other thing you can do as well that would be like more other the kind of game that you can do that more appropriate, right? Maybe it's not the right tool. Maybe it is. Captain Conway said, maybe perhaps what we disagree on, Phil, is that I believe that 3D is a natural evolution of 2D, whilst you think that is a separate thing entirely. I I would think that 3D is more separate than, like, it's not a natural evolution. It's that needs to be. I think 4D could be a natural evolution of 3D, but 3D, to go from 2D to 3D, it need to be a conscious effort. You need to break away. You need to say like, well, you know what? Let's try to focus on role playing instead of just playing this board game. Yeah. Optimizing the methodology of a 2D doesn't have anything to do with less out of character talk. Exactly. Like you can be like the best 2D player, they're still gonna do a lot of out of character talk. They're just gonna be like have the best build and have the most damage per round turn, right? Like, you know, they're all gonna know like the little trick. Well, if you mix this feat with that feat, right? Just this the kind of level they live at. So or well, I guess I'd be like the best 1D player. Is gonna be the funniest guy at the table that makes everybody laugh. Dice tells baby, yeah, I'm still to the party, but it just occurred to me that the difference between 1D, 2D, 3D, and 4D mirror the actual evolution of Dungeon and Dragon as a game over time. Did it? Well, now like they want to devolve the D&D back to a war game. Anyway, that's that's another thing. Lots of 2D player arbor actual roleplay. That's why I see them as separate. Yeah, they're not interested in it at all. And you know, sometimes if you roleplay in a 2D game, thinking like in the sense of like you're thinking in character and acting in character, you're not gonna do the most optimal thing, and the other 2D player are gonna be mad at you for that. They're gonna think you play wrong. You're playing wrong because you did something that was suboptimal, right? We see that a lot. It's like, well, I did what my character would do at the moment, right? I'm not saying that to be a jerk for, you know, Captain Conway. I think like those people that say like, no, maybe not. Captain Conway, although I must be honest, a lot of clown don't really try to continue improving nowadays, so I can see how you have a different opinion. Before finding the Crusade, I did co-evolve towards 3D too. So that's good. Good to see you. I'll see you, Dice still. Thank you for dropping by. Most 2D game that I watch equates 3D play as bad acting. Yeah, they don't get it. I hope, like, you know, I hope this video will help with that. Work call made me miss most of this. I have to rewatch. Yeah, more than once. I need not. So now I'll say I lived with people who don't know how to role play. I ask them how the character feels, and they shrug at me, like I've asked a question about rocket science. Yeah. What do you mean? I'm a level 5 fighter. What do you mean? I feel I have a sword and a shield. 2D GM are so cool. Yeah, they have like they're there to make you feel how cool they are because they have this very well crafted encounter and this very original story that you couldn't have thought of it yourself, right? Now just sit there, enjoy it, and remember, like, tell them how cool they are. Jewish Skeptics, it's been a while since I caught a stream. Glad to see the gang is still doing good. Thank you. Hope everyone is having a good Lent. Well, I am so far, but it's only been 2 days. Schrodinger breakfast try again. Exactly. What do you feel if you didn't have breakfast? What do you mean? Enjoying your yeah. The everybody's enjoying the unsolicited advice by Crispy. It's amazing. There you go. Then also you have to choose if you want to meet players where they are at. If you set up a game with high expectation and have player join who agree on to the condition, yeah, vet your player. If you don't choose somebody, is bound to get disappointed. Vet your player and find the right and find the right table, the right player for the right table, basically, right? 40, this D is more than enough for you. Yeah, exactly. Well, 40 for the four olds. Paraf, my game and table was never really a full 2D game. Paraf, was in a spectrum born out of a 2D game, but never really resting on the roller. Yeah, like even back then, right? We never like and apparently, like Shana was saying that's something with the people from Quebec that the way that we were kind of in a bubble, right, because of language stuff and stuff like that. And he said that apparently, like they had good role player in Quebec because I don't know. I guess like the way we played the game, the way the game evolved in our microcosm, right, was always more toward and might also link with you know the kind of French culture linked to it, right, where we all about character stuff. You read our books, there's nothing happening, but it's all about character. Thank you, Captain Conway. Bilbo say, "Oh crap, this is being recorded." I take back my previous comment. Yes, and I put it on screen. Yeah. Dubong say, feeling I would like to sneak attack something. Exactly. That's like, what do you mean feeling? Like people that don't give like, oh, don't we don't give name to a character until the level 3 because it dies so often. Well, then you don't have a character. If it doesn't have a name, it's not gonna have a personality. It's not gonna have a way of thinking, right? You don't have a character. You have a character sheet. Like but we see that a lot, right? And that's like the people that really don't get it. I love the 5e game, by the way. Oh, thank you. Well, I think it worked well, especially for first time that we got together as a group, right? It was the first time for us playing together. Zonara and Nicholas had played together before, but I never played with them, and I never played with Calvin before. So uh, I think it was a pretty good. I think we knocked it out of the park for a first like instant like that. Yeah, there's something we can work on, obviously, but we're we're still gauging each other and getting the vibe. As Nara said, there's definitely a spectrum between 2D and 3D. People up back and forth between both state all the time. But the 2D player are confused at the role play and 3D player are bored at the 20 question. Oftentimes, like oftentimes you're gonna dip into like the other dimension, like especially when you're in like 4D and 3D, like they're you can not really separate them because even if in the 4D game, you're not gonna co-create everything, right? Sometimes like you're just gonna be in 3D mode because there's nothing to co-create now, or you're not sure if it's step out of bounds, so you're gonna default back to 3D. But those are fine because those are meant to live together, right? In harmony. They're not in competition. Yeah. There you go. Yakrep played with them too. You're the new bitch. Oh, Yakrep, you did play with Nicholas? I didn't know that. Yeah. My first time on stream, first time with the group, first time doing 3D 4D. There you go. Oh, so I guess Phil is lying. There you go. Archlight say I'm in the process of transitioning a group from 1D, 2D to 3D. They are not comfortable with too much co-creation. They are conditioned to probe and be move and float. Hypothetical. I hope it's gonna work for you, and I hope they're gonna enjoy the experience better. I hope they're gonna get to it at some point. Like it's sort of like bad habits to break, right? Asking question, like and like reminding them, like if they're to probe out of character question, like telling them, like tell me what you do to figure out the answer, right? Think about in the real world. How do you get information in the real world? And just tell me you're doing that. This default, if like the default back, if they don't know what to do in a turn and it's their turn, and you should always like, give them a turn. Always come back to them and remind them. Tell me where you are. Tell me what you do. Tell me what you say if you say anything, right? Remind them that in the beginning of the session, and then they're gonna have like great turn, right? And at some point it's gonna flow. But I hope it's gonna work well for you. GM Marcus say I oh, my cat next to me is called Marcus. I watched the Fear City session the other night. Inspiring example for the role play. I'm glad you liked it. It was a great session. Elias or say that was how we mostly played in character for exploration and social contract, but we went to 2D during combat. That's oftentimes something that happened as well, right? There's often like this, like, oh, it's like when you play those old Final Fantasy game, right? You're There's like two phase, and then at some point like you have the zoom out. You're zooming out of your character, and now you sync from up above in tactical mode, and I guess maybe it can give you like the feel of both if you're on like this tactical skirmish game that you enjoy. But in the same time, combat is like those high stakes situation, right? And for me, this is like where I want to be in the mindset of my character. This is where you're like you have the panic and you have the fear and your life's on the line, right? This is such a precious moment to experience as someone that I don't want to rob myself of that by going back and just like thinking as a tactician from up above, right? Outside of character. Yeah. Hello, Flame Zombie. Well, you miss most of the stream. I'm about to wrap up now. YouTube won't start the stream if you're not focused up. Yeah, I hate that. I was working on the document Damia Google. Yeah, like so many stream I got late because of that. I thought the order was late, and then there you go. On hello, Hunter. Good afternoon, Max. I hope you're doing well. I am. Thank you for dropping by, and I will see you next time. Yeah, soon in Legend of Mythic. I forgot the date. Yeah. I'm going to try that with an old group soon. I'm going to tie in introducing them as a new system as well. Oh, good luck with that. Is the new system going to introduce EZD6? Captain can always say, well, to be more specific, I do think I hated 2D play before finding this community things. I did included removing initiative, not solving rules issue at the table, removing, yeah, removing a political question is a big one. That's slowed down the game so much. Like this game, like Crispy was doing a unsolicited advice on, right? And it's driving me crazy. It's a 2 hour session they go through, and like three things actually happen because every time somebody would take a turn, there was a bunch of hypothetical being asked, like, oh, what if this and what if that, and could I do this and could I do that, and what would happen if I did this, right? And it would go on and on and on. It was driving me crazy. And not only that happened, right? And then your turns takes forever because you have all those questions. Then the other player checked out, and then it comes the other player turn, and he checked out because like your turn was taking forever. And now you have to ask a summary of what actually happened, which is also hard to follow because like there was so much what if being asked, then and like political exploration that didn't actually concretize, right? So now like you don't know what happened in the turn, right? It's hard to follow. So now you have to ask a summary, like, okay, so what did you do? Or where are you now, right? Because like, oh, what if I move this? Or what if I move that? Wait, maybe I move there instead. Like, and somebody has to say, okay, where the fuck are you now, right? Just like so, and then like so now his turn takes longer because you have to have the recap, and he's gonna do all those like so you have like 2 hour session and like three meaningful thing happen during the session. It's maddening. I don't know why people would do that. It's insane. Bilbo saying, I want to know who is policing the border between the dimensions so I can speak up and steal the key. Let a bunch of 2D player into 3D and see what happen when they go nuts. Yeah, the 3D player would go nuts, right? Both sides probably, but I think good fence, make good neighbor. Is that like a good border make good neighbor? Is that the expression? Yeah, I think we can all enjoy the hobby in our own way if we figure out, and that's why the model is there, right? Is to figure out like, oh, okay, that's how I enjoy it. I enjoy this hobby. If you enjoy the hobby differently, that's fine. We're probably not gonna play together because we're not gonna have a good time, right? Because we're looking for something different. But yeah, good border make good neighbor. What's the expression? Why I forget? As you can see, I did sort of move toward 3D even before knowing anything about what 3D even is. Yeah, but also like we kind of like give it a name recently and stuff like that. But it's not a new concept either, right? So This is why I believe like 3D is natural evolution for disgruntled 2D player. Uh, for disgruntled 2D player, maybe like people that say, you know what, those role playing game, because a lot of us, that's what happened, right? Well, I'm supposed to be able to role playing. I'm supposed to be immersed. I'm supposed to feel like experience being somebody else and stuff like that. And that's not what I'm getting. So you can figure it out on your own, right? It's not something like super novel, right? You can figure it out. How would you handle travel that may take a few days in 4D? Time skip. I have nothing against time skip. Bilbo say, I've played a lot of 4D adjacent session, but no one ever had the term or explain it. Having good instructions sure seemed like it would be valuable. You could learn to get into satisfying RP in a month instead of a decade. Yes. That's why I make those streams. I try to, we try to have those rules and codify stuff, right? And we try to make thing a little, having good language, which is ironic coming from me. Having good language help understanding and conversation and figuring out stuff, right? Easy D6, yeah, of course. Great system. Highly recommend. I do long travel with quick scene, travel pass quickly and uneventfully for a few days. Yes, this is also like a good point for if you want to do like a long travel and you want to do a time skip, you can do a time skip in phases where you skip some time, like still give like the player some turn, right? Instead of saying, "Oh, 4 day later," right? You can still like go around the table and the players, and that's something you can discuss in session 0 for time skip, right? It's a thing that is, once you're in the group, right? Probably something you can figure out, but there's those anchoring action they can do and longer anchoring action. We do that sometime when going to bed, right? If like the day is over and we want to have a time skip for the morning, right? And then we're gonna have a turn, and I have nothing else to do for the day. I'm ready to time skip to the morning, so I'm just gonna throw a anchoring action that indicate I'm not doing anything important or meaningful anymore. It's basically saying I'm done for the day, right? And then the next player is gonna go, and he can either do something meaningful or not. You can also do like a anchoring action, just like a throwaway action that say like I'm done for the day, and then the next player. And if we all did that, if every player at the table like just describe how they were getting ready for bed, basically, then that's an indication like it's okay to time skip. We can move into the morning, right? If somebody come in and say like, well, I'm going to bed under my blanket, but I remain sure to stay awake, then okay, there's something else like going on, right? Talking about uses ban. That was a error on my part, but no, we learn to this process. So there's something like that, right? Same thing with the long travel. Give him a chance to just like have those long throwaway action that say like, yeah, I don't have anything to do. I'm just gonna keep myself busy during this time, so we don't have to role play that. And he said like, but you have to know that the character are planning to travel, avoid the wait. GM, I wasn't done. Yeah, exactly. That's why like that's why going around and waiting for everybody to have done this throwaway anchoring action is a good way to avoid this. Oh wait, I wasn't done. There's still something else I wanted to do, right? There you go. Hello, Big Bad. That's some shit happen when you move the PC around. Wait, last I checked, I was in this hallway where, yeah, exactly. That's also like when we're talking about like people like having long turn and they have to have this recap every time their turn, because like the GM moved them or decided, make them do something. So that get confusing as well. 2 year are taking our gerbs. Good fence good makes good neighbors. So that's the expression. There you go. Beat me to it. There you go. I played World of Warcraft for the 2D experience. Yeah. The combination of spells I need to cast to heal the whole raid of 20 people as a disciplined priest. I don't need a 2D role playing game for that. That's oftentimes something I say as well, right? It's oftentimes like, maybe if you're not there for the role playing game, for the role playing experience, maybe role playing games are not the best way to get what you're looking for. You know, you should write a book about 40 role play and what it all entails. Shauner did. Our friend Sean, like a role playing the other way, and I'm working on a game right now. I'm probably gonna have some. I'm probably have some a section. When I do it as a book, I'm gonna have like a prologue with like rules for role play and stuff like that. But you know, we're in a we're in a post literate uh, age, so people don't read anymore anyway. Don't read books anymore. They watch video on YouTube. So that's what I'm doing. Oh, Bilbo saying Wes Saunders books. It is free to get on Drive Through RPG. It is called How to Role Play the Hard Way. And hard is like an acronym. It's HARD, right? So it's a honest and reactive dialogue. So you can find it there. Uh, it's free to download. How to Role Play the Hard Way. The Hard Way by Shauner, Sean Driscoll, Shauner Press. Those kind of name, right? If you should be able to find it pretty easy. Yeah. And Hello Nordy Ogre, and yeah, there you go. The title is there and on screen now. There's a book called Roleplay the Oh, is that Roleplay the Hard Way? Oh, so it's Roleplay the Hard Way by Sean Driscoll on Drive Through RPG for free. There you go. So you can see there on screen. Yeah. The advantage of 2D is the ability to mix and match against code. Yeah, I guess that's one thing, right? That computer don't do too well. That you can get with the at the table. You don't have to wait for patches that might never came out. You're cool, multi-class, ultra. Yeah, you can fight. Yes, you can fight 18 giants at a 27 level deadlift encounter. Exactly. What game would give you that experience? Article, honest and reactive dialogue. There you go. Yeah, there you go. You got it. So that's gonna be it. Like, well, that was a long. Thank you for everybody that showed up live for the discussion afterward. Thank you for everybody that's gonna watch on the replay as well. Make sure to like, comment, and share. Also, like I make those slide video. They're meant to be like shorter form. I went long on this one, but I make those slide video for them to be like more shareable. Uh, and also, I want to say on I'm probably gonna do on Saturday another reaction video reaction marathon to D&D advice. So I'm gonna try to start a little earlier than last time, maybe in the afternoon, and we'll see how long we can go. So it's probably gonna be the same kind of format. I'm gonna let people in. I'm gonna try to not have too many people at the same time because then we cannot go through any video. The goal is to go to a number of video, and it's not about just trashing on people. If they gave like good advice, we say good point there. If they said bad stuff, we say bad point there. Some of the video are going to be blind. I'm going to go blind. Some of them I've seen before and I want to address. So this Saturday, I'm planning on doing that. I hope you're going to. Oh, there you go. My ear trumpet has been struck by lightning. I'm sorry your power went out and you missed the stream. I hope you're going to watch the VOD. Like, it's probably not going to be much new to you. You probably heard me say those things. Yeah. But that's it. That's gonna be it for it. I'm gonna wrap it there, and I wish you all good rest of the week and weekend and Lent. There you go. Bye. See you on Saturday.